And now to the fourth session for today, War on Talent. During this session, we'll be addressing the building capability and capacity within our workforce and how that growing leaders for today and tomorrow is absolutely fundamental to the managing the emerging ESG capability gap in the infrastructure sector and beyond, focusing on ensuring that as a sector we remain with outcomes focused on that infrastructure sustainability, and the Infrastructure Sustainability Council looks for an action-orientated approach. Why is it important? Capability and capacity are the key issues in any economic-led recovery where there is pressure to increase resourcing levels. COVID has further intensified this situation. This session will be presented by three speakers. First, we welcome back Ainsley Simpson, the ISC CEO, who will speak about how building capability in our industry aligns with the ISC strategic direction. Then Richard Evans, Managing Director from Talent National, who are the leading environment, sustainability and ESG recruitment company in Australia. Richard will be speaking about the current shortage of sustainability practitioners and what the solution is. And Hayley Greaves, Learning and Development Manager at ISC, will showcase the ISC capability and mentoring programs. And a quick reminder that the ISC Learning and Development team have both been here at the conference, and I recommend visiting them over the course of the conference to get the very best from them. But joining us first on the stage, please, is Ainsley Simpson. Thank you.
Good job staying the distance. The future requires leaders with an inherent culture of courage. The future is going to require a bold new order of leadership, one that creates an operating environment that has got high coordination, high trust, high investment and high return. The future is going to need leaders who live with purpose at their core, and they lead and achieve progress through partnership with people. It is my firm belief that tomorrow's executives are sustainability professionals. Sustainability professionals understand the importance of initiative and agility. Sustainability professionals appreciate that ESG is the roadmap to deliver social, cultural, environmental and economic benefits. And sustainability practitioners not only have the technical depth, you are adept at being proficient influencers. You deliver outcomes often when stakeholders are not fully in step with the importance of intergenerational impact. There are very few successful organizational transformations that are universally top-down. In reality, the mindset which builds positive momentum can sit anywhere in the org chart. And most often, it multiplies from the middle. It is the managers on the front line that make significant change when they have the right mindset. Sectorally, we know that our market capacity is constrained. Our sector could see turnover of up to 40% of its workforce due to early retirement in the next 15 years. So, as we embark on an infrastructure-led recovery, we are also on the cusp of a skills-led recovery. With ESG as a compass for leading through unprecedented challenge and change, the current demand for ESG leadership and ESG talent is unsurpassed and unrelenting. We're currently in a war for talent. And it's not just our take. That is research published by Harvard Law School and locally by Talent Nation. Increasingly, organizations are appointing senior executives who combine industry experience and ESG expertise. They typically have business backgrounds and are focused on value creation. Most often, these executives are being appointed from disciplines like risk and strategy and safety, or finance. They tend to be local champions with global perspective, and they have world-class influencing skills. And that sounds, to me, more like a sustainability professional. So organisations are starting to build their bench strength today and for tomorrow, and creating a culture of sustainability, one that is resourceful, resilient, and responsible. He aha te mihi nui te ao. He tangata, he tangata, he tangata. What is the most important thing in the world? It is the people, it is the people, it is the people. So joining us from Melbourne today is Richard Evans from Talent Nation. Richard is going to share some of the current market trends and the challenges which you are all personally experiencing, how they are driving this war for talent. And his overview complements this business case that building your organisational bench strength for today and tomorrow needs to start right now. So Richard, over to you. Hang on a sec, Richard. We can't hear you yet. Can you hear us? Thumbs up.
I can hear you. Can you hear me now?
There you go. You're good to go.
Excellent. Well, it wouldn't be a conference if I didn't start by putting myself on mute. So good to see that I'm consistent with 2021. But look, thanks so much for allowing me to join you today. I'm very disappointed that I couldn't be in Sydney. Feels like conference season is starting again with the Sustainability Leaders Conference. I'm down here in Melbourne at the moment, but really excited to be able to be a part of ReConnect today. Ainsley, so just wanted to check that you've got the presentation there. Will that be running in the background? So don't have the imagery here. So what I might do is I might just start talking to it, and then if I could get a note through from Jeff as to whether the imagery is. Okay, thank you. So I guess to start off, in terms of who Talent Nation is, so we've been in this space for a little over a decade now. And our mission is to accelerate impact by placing the right person in the right role every time. So everything that we do has a positive social or environmental impact. And that's woven into the DNA of the organisation. We like to feel that we've had a hand in most of the senior sustainability appointments across the country over the last decade, directly or indirectly. We're a founding B Corp here in Australia. We've just gone through our 4th certification. We're also Climate Active certified, one of the first companies in recruitment to go through that process, and a change maker with our charity partner, One Girl. So the study that Ainsley was talking to, we first conducted that in 2019, and then we repeated it again last year. And we looked at 200 companies across various sectors, benchmarked against the ASX, and we covered 12 distinct roles from advisor to head of department with consulting. And I'll talk to 8 of the roles today. We looked at whether organisations were listed, not listed, government enterprises, not-for-profits, and also looked at regional comparisons, gender as well, and pay structures and various bonus components. So I guess the thing that everyone kind of looks to is how much should I be getting paid? So the next slide will show you the key findings for people within this space. And this is probably, maybe I should have just had this flashing up throughout the presentation to see if you could find where you sat. But we can see here that over the last 2 years, there has been an upward trend, and some might argue that in some of the roles there hasn't been much of a shift, but we've got to recognise that over the last 2 years, we might jump back to that last slide if that's okay. Over the last 2 years, we've gone through a lot of turmoil. There hasn't been a lot of movement of people within the market. People have sat tight around their roles. There hasn't been a lot of redundancies within sustainability or environment. It's very different to the GFC, where anyone with sustainability in their title was scrambling to look for a new role or to secure employment. The other thing of note is that short-term incentives were not paid out over that period, or certainly for FY22. So the fact that salaries have increased shows that it has gone into the base remuneration. What we're seeing now is that short-term incentives are really forming a large component of people's packages. So if we jump to the next slide for some of the key findings, that salaries did increase at an average of 10% over 2 years through that period without short-term incentives being included in those packages. But what we're finding now is that salaries are starting to accelerate. So we do this study every 2 years. We're going to be doing another one within the next 6 months because there's just huge demand for these skill sets and not the depth of talent within the market. We also found there's still a lot of work to do on bridging the gender pay gap. So it was quite disappointing. Some of the findings there around the disparity there, because we feel that this is a sector that really should be leading in this space. There's a lot more depth behind the study, and by all means, feel free to reach out or go onto our website. The full report can be purchased for a donation to our charity partner. Interestingly, we looked at the priorities for organisations, and 2 years ago, everything was focused around human rights and modern slavery. There was organisations were trying to get their modern slavery statements nailed down. The consultants were doing very well out of it. They were striking fear into the hearts of organisations. But what we've found over the last 6 months, certainly since COP, and even through the conference that I've been at the last 2 days, it's all about climate risk at the moment. So human rights is really taking a bit of a back seat, and we feel that's going to come back onto the radar within the next 12 months. You can see compliance obligations has always been a strong component within Australia, but interesting to see the customer engagement and product offering is becoming really important, and certainly for this audience, with end user clients demanding greater sustainability credentials. I've heard from Lendlease and Boral over the last 2 days talking about the demand for low emission concrete and really driving greater sustainability initiatives through construction. Probably the biggest shift that we've seen over the last 2 years is that increased investor focus and scrutiny. We're doing a lot of work around responsible investment. We're working with the super funds, we're working with the banks on industry transition, sustainability linked loans, how do they drive carbon out of their customers and out of the supply chain. We're also seeing venture capitalists start to put sustainability people into their organisations. It's maybe cynical, but venture capitalists only care about money, but they've recognised that if they want a more stable asset, then they need to start weaving in sustainability credentials to their organisations. So what does that mean for the talent market? Again, if we look at what's shaping demand, and the shortage of talent at the moment is really being driven by increased demand. So again, that increased investor scrutiny, disclosures to the board, the AGMs, the first questions being asked are around their climate risk strategy, their sustainability and purpose strategy. Staff is critical at the moment. The title of this is the war for talent. Organisations are having to do things differently because they're finding that sustainability is a key priority for attracting talent into the organisation. People want to work for an organisation that they're proud of. The customer piece that we talked about, and then obviously government regulations, but we've still got a bit of work to do there. On the supply side, there's a lot of talk around the borders being closed. But that's probably not what's driving the shortage of talent. We are finding that even the likes of PwC coming out recently and saying they want to hire 100,000 ESG professionals over the next 5 years. Every one of the big four are doing the same. We're seeing consolidation in the market with consultancies. You may have seen in the Fin Review, Point Advisory being acquired by ERM in the last 24 hours. We're also seeing that teams are being built. So rather than an individual with an analyst, we're seeing full teams being built out. So Qantas, for example, they've got a Chief Sustainability Officer, and now they've got 4 heads of sustainability, each with a specialisation on one of their key priority areas, so around future fuel, climate risk, carbon offsetting, and their ESG and social licence component. We're also seeing that change in skill set as well, and it's probably a good segue into the mentor program, Ainsley. But we are seeing an increased demand for commercial skills, and this is something that I've been very passionate about for years, is upskilling sustainability professionals around the business strategy, around the drivers of the organisation. So I guess what that means for sustainability professionals is that there's a number of pathways that they can take. It used to be that you would get caught and have to move out of sustainability if you wanted to progress your career, but we're seeing a requirement for deep expertise in particular areas. We're seeing the emergence of the hydrogen market at the moment, so there's an opportunity for people to be discipline focused and take on a leadership role. But more and more we're seeing these leadership roles come about, and the emergence of the Chief Sustainability Officer, which certainly in Europe and the US is gathering a lot of traction. We're still caught in the ESG or head of ESG space at the moment because of the large investor-led focus. But we are seeing more and more Chief Sustainability Officers being appointed that do sit on the executive, and they do understand the drivers of the organisation. So they're commercial individuals. They've got good stakeholder engagement skills, but they understand when to push and when to pull back, who the key decision makers are within the organisation, and how to drive change through. So certainly when Ainsley spoke to me about the mentoring program, the only thing I could think of is that this should have been around years ago. It's such a great initiative, and I'm hoping that we're going to see this translate through into other industries. Because I know certainly from an executive's perspective, if you've got your sustainability professionals more plugged in or tuned in to how the organisation operates, you're only going to get a better outcome, but also it's helping build their skills to elevate them within the organisation. So I guess I'll leave it there now. I think we've got a little bit of time to make up. Happy to take any questions, or probably quite a nice segue into your mentoring session, Ainsley.
Thank you, Richard. Before I invite Hayley Greaves to come to the stage, just to let you know that we will have a Q&A session after Hayley, so if you want to get your questions in, now is the time to do that. A lot of you, I suspect, are sitting in the driver's seat after hearing that presentation, and your value of you and your work, and the fact that people need you more perhaps than old blokes like me. If I can invite Hayley, Hayley of course is the Learning and Development Manager at ISC. Hayley is going to give you a presentation on the capability and mentoring programs at ISC. Thanks, Hayley.
Thank you. A decade of opportunity. $218 billion to be invested in Australian infrastructure over the next 5 years. $57.3 billion over the next 4 years in New Zealand. A bar that is continuing to rise for sustainability outcomes. And an increased recognition that ESG is not just the right thing to do, but it makes good business sense. It certainly is a decade of opportunity. Opportunity we risk missing out on due to workforce shortages. Currently, the demand massively outweighs the supply, with a gap of around 50,000 jobs, and the gap is growing. As Ainsley mentioned, over the next 15 years, the sector could lose over 40% of its potential workforce due to early retirement. This will see organisations face a loss of key talent and institutional knowledge, and result in a leadership bench not quite ready to shine when it's their time in the sun. So, let's make it our decade of opportunity, our opportunity to rise. My name's Hayley Greaves, Learning Manager at ISC, and today we're launching an industry-wide initiative. And not to miss opportunity that will attract and retain talent and grow talent within your organisation. This programme will embed sustainability skills and cross-generational experiences throughout all levels of the industry. As we heard from Claire this morning, understanding and sharing cross-generational experiences is becoming increasingly important for organisational culture. As anyone involved in ESG will attest, the current level of demand on ESG leadership is unrelenting. In the last 18 months, there has been acceleration of ESG roles created in senior leadership positions. Most of those roles are being filled externally by candidates who combine real-world ESG experience with business, commercial backgrounds, and a diversity of thought and expertise. Okay then, we've established our already shrinking workforce is facing unprecedented demand for skills to meet the investment. A quick look at the Infrastructure Australia Workforce Dashboard shows that this gap is vast and will continue to grow. It's clear and it's critical that we equip our industry for this war on talent. Richard highlighted that ESG roles are becoming more and more attractive with growing salaries, likely to attract new talent to the industry, which is great. But what about the new competition for existing ESG capabilities? What about ESG in leadership? We have expertise and leaders for today, but do we have leaders for tomorrow? We need ESG leaders, then let's create some. Future ESG leaders exist within your organisation now. There's quite likely many of them in this room or joining us online. We're very excited to launch RISE, a cross-industry leadership mentoring programme for leaders of today and tomorrow. The programme, created in collaboration with a global mentoring business, Art of Mentoring, will match today's ESG senior leaders with emerging senior leaders to ensure a supply of talent to executive roles throughout our industry and beyond. The programme will produce next-generation leaders in the sustainability profession. Let's take a moment to think about how mentorship can not only drive industry capability, but can also support your business. Mentorship has proven a successful tool not only in developing leadership skills, which we know we need, it's also proven an effective method of retaining talent and knowledge. As previously mentioned, 40% of the workforce is due to leave in the next 15 years, so we certainly need to retain what we can. In fact, it has been reported that retention rates can be significantly higher for mentees, 72%, and mentors at 69%, than those who do not participate in mentorship programs, 49%. Retention creates business savings too. The same study reported $6.7 million in savings attributed to avoiding turnover and replacement costs. They also estimated an ROI of more than 1,000% in their investment in mentoring. It's a small short-term cost for a large long-term gain. I think we can agree mentoring is of huge value, certainly in the face of great resignation and increasingly competitive market for talent. Mentoring is a mutually beneficial and helping relationship based on exchange of a few things we have in plenty: knowledge, real-world leadership and influencing expertise, and goodwill. As a mentor, those with line management experience can enrich their mentoring and leadership skills, gain intellectual challenges and new perspectives, and contribute to the future workforce. They might even learn a few acronyms like most of us did today, NGL. Emerging senior leaders as mentees will benefit from real-life experience of others, networking, receiving feedback and guidance in a safe and supportive relationship. So the action here is on you. Are you a senior leader with experience to share and a desire to contribute to the creation of a thriving industry? Or are you a professional with a drive to influence and lead? Our initial intake of the RISE mentoring program will match 20 mentors with 20 mentees for a 9-month program commencing in April. Applications are open now. We're a friendly bunch at the ISC, and the stand is just over there. So come over to us, ask us about eligibility, explore the mentoring program, and apply today. We hear a lot about sustainability outcomes in the context of ratings, projects, programs, but it's time to look wider and ensure that those delivering those outcomes, our workforce, is sustainable too. Whether you're a mentor or a mentee, apply today. Thank you.
Ainsley, thank you very much. If I can invite Ainsley Simpson to rejoin us back on stage, please, to take some questions from you. Thank you. No, I don't have any questions yet. Is anybody throwing one in? Or would somebody just like to simply shout out a question? Anybody? So the question is, what's the eligibility for the mentoring program?
As a mentor, we're looking for 7 years professional experience.
I'm sorry. Could you stand at the election? Sorry, ma'am. Yes, indeed.
Sorry, thanks. As a mentor, we're looking for 7 years professional experience, with at least 4 of those being line management experience. And as a mentee, 4 years professional experience. So it's clear that this is a leadership mentorship program, not sustainability mentorship program. So we're looking for emerging leaders, not necessarily emerging professionals.
Thank you. Any other questions? Any for Richard? No? Short session. Sorry about that. Thank you both very much for coming on. And thank you also, Richard. Please thank them. I'm sorry, did I keep one? Yes. You mentioned business and commercial experiences, Richard. What other types of experiences would you put into that umbrella?
In terms of business and commercial, or additional experiences beyond that?
Yes, I'm getting a nod. More options. Sorry?
Yeah.
More of the second option than what you said. Sorry about this.
Yeah, sure. That's okay. Look, I guess the constant theme that we're seeing across the board for these leadership roles, so yes, we look at business and commercial, but that stakeholder engagement piece is really critical. Often sustainability professionals have had to do a lot with not much, so they've got to be good at bringing in project teams and getting people on board. So that stakeholder engagement piece. Having a foot in the risk camp as well, so that you can understand, your actions and how that impacts the broader organisation. I guess that's why I love this mentoring program, because it's the opportunity to learn from people who are in those leadership roles. They have had to go through processes to get a project signed off or an initiative signed off and understand who the stakeholders are that you need to get on side. Also from the compliance side of things, so what are the investors concerned about? If we're going to get more letters from BlackRock saying that they're not going to invest unless you shore up your purpose and your climate strategy. So what's actually important to the investors to ensure that that's not going to impact your business. One thing that chatting to Alex Holt, who's the Chief Sustainability Officer at Woolworths, what they've been looking to do is bring talent from within. So I guess from a leadership perspective, being able to recognise the skills that you need, bring it into the team, but then upskill as well.
Now, are there any other questions? I can bring a mic to anybody who has a question so they can hear it. Hands, please. Anybody? Yes, thank you.
Just on the mentoring program, is it a formal, structured program?
Yep, it's a formally structured program. We've got key dates of applications and launching of the program with regular catch-ups. We've got a handbook that has all of that information in, and we are in partnership with Art of Mentoring, which is a global mentorship business, and their expertise will see that this mentorship program is very successful.
Good. We've got time for one more final question. Anybody else? I'll come over.
Just a question for Richard. You talked about the shortage in skills. I just wondered whether we, in Australia, how we compare to other countries and whether we will meet our own targets in terms of our knowledge gap.
That's a really good question. So I guess from a talent perspective, we are at a disadvantage in that we are an island, and it's very hard to get here, and anyone that's got loved ones that are overseas will recognise that. I just think that we will get there, but we need to think differently, and we need to devote the time to upskill. So that, I guess, that example with Woolworths, so they're talking about analytics, and a lot of sustainability at the moment is around data. Getting good data, good analytics. How do you use that to create, I guess, a roadmap of what you need to achieve, and so it's about looking beyond just a sustainability analyst and looking at other parts of the business where maybe they do have stronger analytical skills. So I think there's an element of looking for comparable skills, and then there's also an element of trying to upskill individuals, because there is also a risk that we're going to be promoting people into roles too quickly. So they may have sustainability credentials, but they don't necessarily have those leadership skills. I think the other component as well is the fact that a lot of people have been working from home, so you miss that on-the-job learning. I was talking to someone about the gig economy, and in some ways it's good, but in other ways I hate the gig economy because it all works in the employer's favour, but you're losing the mentoring and learning, particularly when I was earlier on in my career. A lot of that knowledge I got from the senior people within the organisation because they've been through things before, and you're not learning things for the first time. So I think it'll be tight over the next couple of years in terms of finding the right skill sets. I would hate for it to get into a bidding war for people, because then I think we'll miss the point of the sustainability sector. And certainly to date, people don't join roles for the money. It's nice to see the remuneration starting to lift to recognise those skills. But I think we're pretty resourceful and pretty adaptable. So it'll be a case of just trying to upskill as quickly as possible. The borders are opening. We can bring in talent from overseas as well. So we'll get there. We'll meet our targets.
Just one further question for Ainsley.
Yeah, it's good that we're looking ahead in 15 years, that 40% decrease in the labour force. Slightly longer pipeline. What's the role of the ISC, Ainsley, in get involved in education, not just higher education, but making sure that talent pipeline is coming through in even longer time horizons. Is there a role there as a champion and a facilitator, and making sure that the skills coming through are relevant to those which are needed 20, 30 years from now? Appreciate you haven't got a crystal ball, but we've got an idea of where we need to head to.
What a great question. Thank you, Martin. We don't have a crystal ball, but I sure do have a plan. Our strategic plan really clearly lays out that in terms of building a thriving industry, capacity building is at the core. So mentoring is one way to do that, because we already identified that there is an immediate need, and that can build the pipeline that we know is going to already have a deficit. In addition to that, we've started building out our program of learning, so that we're reaching executives, because many of you would know there is this urgent need to understand what sustainability is and how to implement it on the ground, but there are not too many safe places for executives to have that conversation. It's something that they need to know today, so we're starting our executive program so that we reach the leaders today. In terms of the folks that are on the ground from a delivery perspective, we're already reaching project managers, and as many of you have already come through our programs, we're looking at different ways so that there is additional technical depth being built. In terms of the forward estimates and where we're going, we'd love to start working with the tertiary sector so that we have work-ready graduates, folks that come into our sector ready to roll. There are so many inspired students that are already either at TAFE or in uni and just are looking for that extra added benefit. So the first tranche of our work will be with the tertiary education sector, but beyond that, I certainly have my eyesight firmly set on the secondary education and building up more connection with those in STEM, so that we have a pipeline of executives right from high school all the way through. It's a big plan. It's not all going to come to bear in this particular strategic plan. We've got just over 3.5 years to go, but there's a good plan, and in time, and as we all grow in strength and capability, all of that will get done.
Please thank our panel, Ainsley, Richard and Hayley, and also you. Those questions are great questions, so thank you very much for all that. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.